Sure. I'm Jonathan Covey, the Chief Marketing Officer of ZETA and ZETA is the first universal blockchain where one app works on every network, even Bitcoin, right from day one. Yes.
How is this information? What does it?
Yeah. So there are all these new blockchains popping up. You mentioned L2s. There are also Bitcoin L2s and new blockchains like layer ones like Solana and Sui of this cycle. So there are all these diverse chains that are their own islands. And so the big question for developers and users is how do you make them interoperate with each other? And so there are solutions out there like cross-chain bridges where you send data between smart contracts and they use wrap tokens and lock your assets. ZETA approaching it differently with a sort of meta layer that has built-in connectivity to Sui, Solana, Ethereum. And so from a developer experience standpoint, you just deploy one app and you can launch across all of these chains. And if you, with this sort of universal app architecture, users can access it from any wallet on every chain. So the experience is much more like the internet, where you don't really think about the blockchains or the operating systems. It just sort of works.
How does highlight information?
Sure. So there are a lot of blockchains out there, but not all of them matter. So ZETA integrates Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, some of the major L2s, about 10 chains. And we were very interested in Kaya because of its strategic value in the Korean ecosystem. So it's predominantly a gaming chain, although it's being positioned as a key chain for fiat-backed stablecoins in Korea. This is the big talk of KBW 2025. We're building a product that will unify the stablecoins on ZETA, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And so if your stablecoins are on Kaya or Avalanche, whatever issuer they are, you can deposit them into a universal pool on ZETA and have like a universal KRW-backed stablecoin. So it's a very important chain in Korea and part of our strategy to grow in Korea.
Use cases. What are the benefits from integrating?
So stablecoins is like the money of the internet. Everything's flowing into it, and we continue to see stablecoin TVL go up. USDC and USDT are the majority players, although there are more, like in the US, PayPal and Stripe, and there's going to be many issuers of stablecoins. The benefit is that it's a much more efficient system on chain versus traditional banking, and the dollar is sort of like the intermediary settlement asset, but there's a lot of inefficiency in the traditional markets. So stablecoin payments and decentralized finance, there's a whole bunch of efficiency to be had around that and benefits to users that can get more yield versus like a traditional bank account. And then from a developer standpoint, the problem, it's like there are all these new stable coins that are getting traction, but it further fragments the ecosystem and you have siloed liquidity on Ethereum, Solana. And so part of the value prop of ZETA as a universal blockchain is that it can pool all of that liquidity in one place and give developers an easier, like smart stable coin to build all of these cool apps.
How does it? Yes. What else does this?
So there are a number of institutions in Korea, like Kakao and Naver, and some of the big banks like Shinhan and the government are all talking about issuing new stable coins. And so we talked about there's lots of different issuers, and then there are lots of blockchains that these assets will sit on. Kaya, Avalanche, Solana, Ethereum. And so what the Toba team is building is a universal liquidity layer for stablecoins. So if you're a user on Avalanche or Kaya, whatever KRW denominated stablecoin you have, in one click you can deposit into this UKRW pool, universal WAN stablecoins, and have one simpler primitive. You can also do a cross-chain stable swap. So if you need this particular stablecoin on Avalanche and you want to swap and get a different one on Kaya, for example, Toba can be that efficient cross-chain stable swap.
Unison in speed and interview.
Yeah.
What instance is MS?
Yeah, it has a cool name. I came up with the name. Unison, in an orchestra, there are lots of instruments and they play in unison. Zeta chain it is a chain that connects all of the major networks and keeps all the blockchains in sync in unison. So you deploy a universal app and it works everywhere. You don't have to reinvent the wheel and write it in Rust on Solana or Move in Sui. So particularly with the Unison upgrade, it brings Zeta Chain into greater compatibility with the EVM toolset. So from a developer standpoint, you can use an existing contract like Uniswap or Purr out of the box, and with very little code change, you just deploy it on Zeta and it becomes natively cross-chain. So there's a lot that's packed into the Unison protocol release, but bringing the development experience into greater compatibility with Ethereum is one of the bigger takeaways. And also, like, SUI of this cycle is very hot, like the Move programming language, Rust, and there are benefits. But when you look at the data, most of the developer mindshare is still the EVM environment and tool set. And so Zeta Chain's catering to where the majority of developers build, which is in Solidity still.
How do you see the future of Ethereum?
Yeah. So the universal blockchain is already live, and it has the built-in chain connectivity. We just added SUI integration, and we can continue to add important chains into the future. It also has the built-in universal liquidity, which is very relevant for stablecoins. Not just KRW stablecoins, but there's going to be a yen-backed stablecoin, peso, a euro-backed stablecoin, and then like the Circle providers, USDT. There's going to be a lot of competition, but the ecosystem needs one simple canonical asset that users can work with and developers can build with. So what's on the roadmap for the Toba team is initially, they'll launch mainnet in the next couple months. The testnet version is coming out in a few weeks. We have a waitlist sign up, but mainnet will be out in a few months. And I think we'll initially find traction as a cross-chain stable swap, people that just want to get the asset that they want on a particular chain. But ultimately, this sort of universal KRW stablecoin or universal USDC will become a de facto part of how developers build universal apps on Zeta Chain. And that universal token can also be available in the Solana ecosystem or SUI. So that's kind of a future piece of alpha. Is like universal tokens can be developers can build with on external connected blockchains as well.